Judgment Day arrives for a Miami, Oklahoma man convicted of attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping.
Our Thursday snow finally rolling in, doing so from the west. We'll have the latest on your travel conditions from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, if you're looking for a job, look no further. The health system hosts a hiring fair, and plenty of positions remain open.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to our stories in just a moment. But first, the big story. It's snowing.
Yeah, it hasn't been too bad. So far, everything has stayed nice, light and fluffy. As a matter of fact, live look from 7th and Rangeline. Every now and then, we're starting to see just a little bit fall down there. Of course, the majority of it started up to the north and to the west. And so, give you an idea of what this thing is capable of doing, though. Right in here, in between Wichita and Hutch, has already dropped 2 inches. Now remember, we find ourselves on the southernmost portion of this U-shaped band that's going to eventually go from coast to coast. And we'll end up with about 1.5 inches, 2 inches in pockets up here to the northwest. Starting to see just some flurries for the central portion, making its way out to the east. And then, of course, the farther south you go. That was evident when we looked at the tower cam at 7th and Rangeline. Just now, starting to see it show up in the streetlights. So no travel conditions for the time being. National Weather Service did go ahead and issue us a winter weather advisory until 10. It's kind of a combo. It's a, hey, heads up, reminder, hey, the snow's coming. But also, too, combine it with this turquoise over here because that is a wind chill warning. Temperatures going to be dangerously low, not only for this morning, but also overnight as well. So we got right now 19 in Joplin, 16 in Chanute, and 20 in Monette. Everybody well below the freezing mark. And remember, those are actual temperatures. Those are not the wind chills. By the time we get to about 1, 2 o'clock, we should be done for good. And like I said, if we can keep our travel conditions the way we are right now, everybody just slows down. Shouldn't develop that many slick spots because there's actually not a whole lot of Gulf moisture up in there. That's what gives us that sticky stuff. It makes it hard to drive in, and of course, also too presents us with the ice. And ice is not going to be a problem today. But look at that overnight low, Tanya, back down into the teens. So anticipate single-digit wind chills for one more night.
Ooh, 14 degrees. All right, thanks, Michael. Well, nearly 6 years after a Miami, Oklahoma man stabbed an elderly man and doused him with bleach, he learns his sentence. A judge sentences Brian Waterman to 36 years in prison for attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping. In 2016, Waterman broke into a Baxter Springs, Kansas home, repeatedly stabbed the resident, 78-year-old Bob Hopkins, and then poured bleach on him. Hopkins survived the attack. Jurors convicted Waterman this past November. U.S. Marshals captured a Grove, Oklahoma woman who was considered a most wanted suspect. Authorities arrested Heather Griffith near Grove. Griffith was wanted for violating her probation after pleading guilty to stabbing a woman at a hotel in Grove in November. As temperatures drop, there's concern for the area's homeless population and capacity at local shelters. While there was some concern that local shelters were at capacity, that isn't the case. At Souls Harbor, the housing units are full, but the shelter is still able to house people. The executive director at Souls Harbor says they can house up to 35 people on a regular basis. And when they reach that limit, they send people to their overflow unit.
The overnight shelters are open when the temperatures become extreme. Now, I think Water Gardens is 25 and below, but we do 32 and below over here. So anything 32 degrees or less, then yeah, we certainly want you to come in off the street.
The overnight shelter at Souls Harbor opens at 6 and the cutoff is around 10 p.m., although they say they will still let people in after that. The Alliance of Southwest Missouri is connecting area nonprofits with the tools and people they need to serve the community. They've created a Facebook page called Community Resources for Nonprofit Professionals. It's a forum for nonprofits to view job listings, classes, funding opportunities, and more.
A lot of those times are case managers, social workers, school counselors. So we're thinking, okay, well, this is a very niche group of people that we tend to work with. So, and a lot of that messaging comes through our Facebook, our Instagram, and the rest of our social media accounts. So that's why we thought if we have a Facebook group for it, they can communicate between themselves.
You can find a link to the resource page in this story on our website at koamnewsnow.com. Freeman Health System, like companies across the nation, is looking to fill several positions. The company hosted an open house and hiring fair at Pitt State's Bicknell Family Center for the Arts. Officials say they're looking to fill full and part-time positions, both clinical and non-clinical. However, in the time we were there, very few job candidates showed up to the event. Freeman Health employees we spoke to would not comment on the lack of attendance at the fair, but the hospital system is far from the only company looking for employees right now. Analysts say a nationwide labor shortage is driven in part by early retirement. A record 4.5 million people left their jobs in November. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Well, employers did ramp up hiring in December at the fastest pace in months. According to payroll processor ADP, private companies added 807,000 positions last month, more than doubling expectations. New jobs were added across the board, but leisure and hospitality positions led the way. The Joplin Area Habitat for Humanity held 2 home dedication ceremonies. And these are the organization's 177th and 178th homes completed in the Joplin area. Yesterday's homes went to the Curl family and the Thurman family.
I would say that he's really excited and happy. We were actually over here a lot during Christmas break, and we played in the yard a lot, and he didn't ever want to leave. So I would think that he's super happy and really excited.
Habitat for Humanity plans to construct 8 to 10 new homes this year. Walmart is playing a role in feeding hungry folks in the Lamar area who might not have money to hit up their stores. The retail giant donates produce to the Good Samaritan Food Pantry in Lamar, Missouri. Produce is available to all Barton County residents.
This program's open to anybody in Barton County. It's not based on income. If somebody finds themselves in a shortage on food or something, anybody from Barton County is welcome to participate in this.
You can find the Good Samaritan Food Pantry at 1301 Perry in Lamar. It's 5:07.
Starting to see some flurries develop over the intersection at 7th and Rangeline. That's all it's amounted to so far in Joplin. Then as you work up to the north, starting to see actual legitimate snowfall, especially for portions of northwest, southeast Kansas, working its way through northern southwest Missouri as well. Have not had any travel concerns so far, but be on the safe side and get out a little bit early. Also, too, make sure you got that emergency kit in the back of the car, including multiple layers and blankets. This is a look at our wind chills. We're throwing up negative numbers up in the northwest. So while the snow hasn't posed any travel threats, let's also not discount the fact that it's dangerously cold.
This morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, Rivalry Week tips off as Pitt State and Missouri Southern go head-to-head on the hardwood. Plus, tech and gadgets have become an everyday part of our lives, and every year the CES rolls out the hottest trends. Stick around for the latest details. And masks have been part of our lives for almost 2 years now, and now experts say the highly transmissible Omicron variant may require a mask upgrade. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Rivalry week for Pittsburg State and Missouri Southern basketball. The two teams meet on Saturday in Joplin. It'll be the first of 2 scheduled meetings. On the men's side, some good news for Pitt State headed into the last 2 months of the season. That's because they're finally getting healthy. Bobby Arthur Williams returned to the floor last week, first time this season. Arthur Williams was the Gorillas' leading scorer last year. In his first game back, came out hot, posted 24 points and 10 rebounds against Mo Western. Pitt State has 14 games left, plenty of time to climb the MIAA standing, so having one of their best players back gives them a boost for the final 2 months.
He brings, versatility. He's a guy who can post up. He guys can shoot the perimeter shot. Maybe more than anything, he's an experienced guy that knows how to play. And, he was successful a year ago, an all-conference player. And, just having a guy like that back, I think makes not only me, but everyone else a little more comfortable on the floor.
It hurts because we were losing, and it's hard when you're a big contributor to the team and you can make a difference. But, I just kept my head down and waited for my time.
So much for shaking off the rust. Once again, Arthur Williams, 24 points in his first game back this season. Pitt State travels to Missouri Southern on Saturday. Women's game tips at 1:30. Men's game scheduled for approximately 3:30. On Wednesday, a pair of Pittsburg high school seniors signed to continue their football careers in college. They're going to stay on the same team. Rob Hollis and Caden Barber, both signing to play at Coffeyville Community College next season. For PHS, rushed for about 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, played fullback, played tight end, also had 16 tackles and forced a fumble at defensive tackle. As for Barber, missed his senior year due to an injury, but he's a crazy athlete. He's going to play running back at Coffeyville. Both of these guys looking forward to staying teammates after high school.
Caden and I have been pretty close friends since I've been here, and even though we didn't get to play together, we worked out together a lot and done a lot of field work, stuff like that, so that'll definitely help a lot going into Coffeyville.
I'm definitely going to feel more comfortable at Coffeyville now I have a friend there. It'll be fun playing with them and see where we can go after this.
Coffeyville's a nationally ranked JUCO team, so that definitely helps with that a lot. Lots of colleges are looking at them. Lots of good guys have came out of Coffeyville. There's numerous NFL players that are playing even now and previously come through Coffeyville, so that helps a lot too.
Little recap of the bowl season as the Kansas State Wildcats finished up the football season topping LSU. They were in the Texas Bowl. Final score was 42-20. Malik Knowles got the Wildcats off to a hot start. 2 receiving touchdowns in the first half. Deuce Vaughn, monster night. Scored a Kansas State Bowl record 4 touchdowns. At the end of the day, nice way for 6th-year quarterback Skylar Thompson to end his K-State career. Thompson came back from injury not once but twice this season and goes out with a big win.
To see what he went through this year, getting nicked up early in the season, fighting his way back and playing well on one leg really, and then getting banged up late in the season. The kid just means the world to me. I love him. I love his family. He's been great to my kids and my wife, and to see him go out like that, because this game was huge for him too. He wanted to play well in this bowl game, and he did.
My ultimate goal was to be healthy for this game and to go out on my terms. You know, that was my biggest goal. Is I want to walk away from this on 2 feet standing and giving it everything I got and get a bowl win.
It's going to feel a little bit weird in the Big 12 not to say the name Skylar when it comes to Kansas State quarterbacks. But look on the opposite side. Remember who's joining the team next year. Adrian Martinez is still in college and still playing quarterback. Still to come on the KOAM Morning News, we got a crazy one down under. Australian officials have canceled the visa for the #1 tennis player in the world. It comes ahead of the Australian Open after the tournament told him, come on down and play. And to check on our 7-day forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns. Touch past 5:17, great time for weather on the 7s, and now we're starting to see just a little bit lighter out there on the parking lot where the flurries are coming down at 7th and Range Line. Then behind me every now and then, there you go. See it shooting through the street light right there. Still, even though that kind of looks a little deceiving with it coming down sideways, it's flurries right now as you work down to the southern portion of the 4 states, especially through Joplin. As far as our current conditions right now, 19 degrees. It is a cold one out there with a wind chill of only 6. Starting to see about an inch already build up in the far northwestern portion of southeast Kansas, and then turning into legitimate snow out in southwest Missouri. Lightens up as you work down here. Of course, that's where our tower cam is. So it's still flurries for the most part, really not having the snow come down. Did get a 2 inches out here earlier this morning through in between Wichita and Hutch. So that's an idea of what it's capable of. Our driving conditions so far, so good. They got a mess down here. Thank goodness we don't have any purple or pink show up for the wintry mess. If we can keep this nice light fluffy snow, we'll be just fine. It is very, very cold outside. Multiple layers for the kiddos and for you as well, ranging anywhere from 13 to 25. And we've got winter weather advisories lasting until 10, just a friendly reminder. And then these are wind chill advisories because that is dangerously cold. Look at that, throwing up some negative numbers right there. Should be done with this by about the noon hour. Since this is our first bout of, having to do it during a weekday. Do try to get out a little bit early, whole lot of defensive driving out there. But like I said, with the texture and lack of moisture in it, if we can keep this all the way through the noon hour, we're looking pretty good. Time now to turn our attention to the KOAM News Now Facebook page and the Daily Almanac and our morning Instapoll. CES planned to make a triumphant return to the Las Vegas Strip this week, but Omicron changed the plans of many companies. A scaled-down show missing some of tech's biggest names, still underway in a hybrid format. setting the year's tech trends in real life and online. Karina Kafa brings us the details.
The show must go on. That's the approach by CES, the global annual tech showcase hosted by the Consumer Technology Association.
We're bringing people together this week hopefully lets us solve future problems, and again, getting us living, working, playing better, all thanks to technology.
After an all-virtual show last year, CES was supposed to return to full form on the Las Vegas Strip this week, but Omicron had other plans. Big names such as Amazon, Meta, and Google are participating virtually. So is General Motors, which took the reveal of its Chevrolet Silverado electric vehicle online. On the floor, which requires being vaccinated and masked, are names like Samsung, showing off a more affordable addition to its Galaxy S21 family of smartphones with the Galaxy S21 FE, and the Freestyle, a tiny home projector for movies, TV, and more. Beyond big names, CES spokesperson Allison Freed says in-person connections at the show are vital to small companies.
This is their time to shine. These are people who have brilliant, innovative ideas that are trying to get it to market. And that market is at CES.
That includes more in the fitness and health arena in the COVID-19 era.
Telemedicine, digital therapeutics, remote patient monitoring systems is a big deal right now as sensor technology is getting smaller and smaller.
The show will wrap up on Friday, one day earlier than initially planned.
Coming off of the Hybrid CES show, asking you what's your favorite tech item. You can either hit us up via Facebook or go directly to the poll, komnewsnow.com/vote. Health Watch next.
Topping Health Watch this morning, the White House says it is opening more free COVID-19 testing sites across the country. The additional federally run locations will open in 6 states: Maine, Maryland, Nevada, Delaware, Texas, and Washington. Cases of the Omicron variant are spiking, increasing demand for tests. Wednesday, the White House reported thousands of free tests are being provided daily in mobile federal testing sites in New York and New Jersey. They say they're also working on distributing free at-home COVID tests. Last month, President Biden announced 500 million of those will go out. And Tuesday, his administration shared the government is working on a system to distribute the test, including a website. They say Americans will start receiving the test in the coming weeks. The Sundance Film Festival canceled in-person events on Wednesday, citing concerns about the high transmissibility of the Omicron variant. The events were scheduled as a hybrid of both virtual and in-person screening events in Utah later this month. And now organizers have moved the entire event online. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said Tuesday that the Omicron variant now accounts for 95% of new U.S. COVID cases. The Delta variant makes up nearly all the rest. CDC Vaccine Advisory Committee voted on Wednesday to recommend expanding Pfizer boosters for ages 12 to 17, at least 5 months after the primary vaccination series. CDC says vaccinations among 12 to 17-year-olds has slowed recently. On Monday, the FDA expanded the emergency use authorization for Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine boosters to children ages 12 to 15. For nearly 2 years, we've been hearing how important it is to mask up to prevent COVID-19 from spreading. But with the new rapidly spreading Omicron variant, experts say cloth masks do not cut it anymore. Wendy Gillette has what you need to know to protect yourself and others in this unprecedented surge.
With the highly transmissible Omicron variant surging across the country, experts say it's time to upgrade the cloth mask.
The typical cloth mask might be 50% effective, and that was okay before. It doesn't seem to be enough with Omicron. We have special masks called respirators, such as an N95, that offer much greater protection. They're able to block 95% of particles that are either going out of your mouth or that you're breathing in.
Dr. Lindsay Marr with Virginia Tech studies how viruses move in the air. She says other respirators are also widely available.
Things like a KN95, which is a Chinese version of the US N95. It has ear loop straps and it's made out of a special material that's very efficient at filtering out particles. It also is designed to fit closely to your face. There's a South Korean version called a KF94 that some people call the boat-shaped respirator.
Three-ply surgical masks can also help prevent contact with infected droplets.
There are ways to really improve the performance of a surgical mask by improving its fit. One way is to use some little kind of clips or toggles on the ear loops so that you can tighten it up so it pulls closer to your face.
The fit is critical for all of these masks to ensure the strongest possible protection.
What you need is to have a good seal, especially around your nose, and you want to make sure there aren't gaps at the sides of your cheeks or at your chin.
As for kids, Dr. Marr says also choose a good mask that's comfortable, with good fit and filtration. Some respirators are designed for kids, but N95s are not designed for younger children. Wendy Gillette, CBS News, New York.
It's important to check that a regulating body in the U.S., Chinese or Korean government has approved what you're purchasing. Counterfeit KN95 respirators are pretty prevalent, and the CDC maintains a list of brands selling those counterfeit masks. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. Coming up, Judgment Day arrives for a Miami, Oklahoma man convicted of attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping.
Starting to see the snow come down just a little bit harder there at 7th and Rangeline. We'll have the latest on your travel conditions and talk about where you can find your latest closings from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, if you're looking for a job, look no further. Freeman Health System hosts a fair. Plenty of positions remain open.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5:30. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to our top stories in just a moment. But first, our big story of the day, snow coming down, and we have a closing.
But not a closing, a delay.
A delay.
A delay. But no, I give you all the credit in the world for bringing that up there during our commercial break. It was something I kept refreshing, and so far we didn't have anything. Until St. Patrick's Catholic School in Parsons going with an hour-and-a-half delay now, 90-minute delay. And once again, all you have to do is go to KOAMnewsnow.com, find our closing section at the very top, and that'll be updated throughout the course of the morning. Number 2, Tanya, as much as the consistency of this has kind of cooperated with us travel-wise, just got out the phone with a friend of mine, a highway patrol trooper, who dropped the phone and said, I gotta go, we just had one run off the road. So, here we go. I'm gonna reiterate this. Yes, it might be coming down as the light and fluffy stuff, not the sticky, wintry mess. Doesn't matter. There are obviously slick spots out on the road. Turn the tower cam at 7th and Rangeline up to the north. A little bit deceiving here. It looks like it's coming down in sheets, but that's just the fact that it's so elevated right now. Really, it begins to settle. Haven't had much accumulation, especially down around the Joplin area. Now, eventually, we're looking at our heaviest snow for Joplin about from 6 to 8. It'll taper off then as you work up to the northwest, but that's where we've seen the majority of the snowfall already. 18 degrees, it is super cold out there. Here's what we're seeing already, about 1.5 inches of snow, and then we're starting to see it filter down to the south, all the way on the other side of I-44, and our accumulation numbers now approaching 1 inch in the northern portion of southwest Missouri as well. This thing kind of gains steam after it gets past us. Springfield can deal with that. We've still got additional to come out here to the west, where it has already dropped 2 inches of snow. They'll end up with about 3.5 inches out there in the Wichita area. If you got to be on the road, and I hope you don't, if you got to be on the road, you're going to hit snow some form or fashion. Even if you're headed down to OKC or into northwest Arkansas, you're going to have to take 49 or 44 and get through the snow. So please, please get out early and just everybody take it slow today. 15 in Fort Scott, 23 in Miami, and 19 in both Carthage and Oswego. Now, we've got the winter weather advisory, National Weather Service throwing this up to remind everybody, hey, we're not used to this so much, especially during a morning commute, and then dangerously cold out to our west where they've got a wind chill advisory. So let's talk a little bit about that cold, because our high today, most places we've already hit it. We're going to continue to drop down on the thermometer. Overnight lows down around the teens. Not going to be surprised, Tanya, with an uptick in the north wind if we don't even see some negative wind chills once again tonight into tomorrow morning.
All right, thanks, Michael. Nearly 6 years after a Miami, Oklahoma man stabbed an elderly man and doused him with bleach, he learns his sentence. A judge sentenced Brian Waterman to 36 years in prison for attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping. In 2016, Waterman broke into a Baxter Springs, Kansas home, repeatedly stabbed the resident, 78-year-old Bob Hopkins, and then poured bleach on him. Hopkins survived the attack. Jurors convicted Waterman this past November. U.S. Marshals capture a Grove, Oklahoma woman who was considered a most wanted suspect. Authorities yesterday morning arrested Heather Griffith near Grove. Griffith was wanted for violating her probation after pleading guilty to stabbing a woman at a hotel in Grove in November. As the temperatures drop, there's concern for the area's homeless population and capacity at local shelters. KOM's Bronte Sorotsky tells us what shelters are seeing, how many people are seeking shelter, and how that is affecting their capacity.
Propane, open flames inside small tents, which is dangerous in itself, but it's that or death, for a lot of people.
Tommy Harris has been homeless in Joplin for about 4 years and explains how difficult it is for those experiencing homelessness in the cold weather.
You just do what you have to do every day,
Local shelters like Souls Harbor and Watered Gardens have become even more full as people seek shelter from the winter weather, but tell us they are still able to house people.
We are seeing a few more people needing to come in than we usually do.
Diana Gurley, executive director at Souls Harbor, says due to more people needing shelter, their regular housing units are full, leaving them to open up their overflow shelter.
And we also have a special place open where we take in more than what is in our house. So I think some confusion comes in where they hear, oh, the house is full, and the house indeed is full. However, with the overflow, we're a little more, we're not so limited in how many we can take in.
At Watered Gardens, it's a similar story.
But more times than not, our shelter gets full. Of course, people are definitely wanting to get out of the cold and off the streets. But beyond that, because when the temperatures do drop, below 20, or when the wind chill gets below 20, we do open up a warming center, and that's really open to everyone to come when those temperatures are that low.
At Watered Gardens, they say the requirements change when the weather drops.
Our front doors here at the Outreach Center are just open, and you can come into this front section and get warm.
Both say they will be open during the current winter weather for anyone in need of shelter. In Joplin, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
Both Souls Harbor and Watered Gardens say their overnight shelters will be open due to the cold temperatures, meeting their requirements. Freeman Health System, like companies across the nation, is looking to fill several positions. The company hosted an open house and hiring fair at Pitt State's Bicknell Family Center for the Arts. Officials say they are looking to fill full and part-time positions, both clinical and non-clinical. However, in the time we were there, very few job candidates showed up to the event. Freeman Health employees we spoke to would not comment on the lack of attendance at the fair. The hospital system is far from the only company looking for employees right now. Analysts say a nationwide labor shortage is driven in part by early retirement. A record 4.5 million people left their jobs in November. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There's Michael with a look at your forecast.
Transition to the sweeping radar, Tanya. We can give an idea of intensity right there. Remember, that's all snow that's coming down. Now we're seeing it pick up south of I-44 and a little heavier, especially on the eastern edge of southwest Missouri. Replace that with our radar overlay, just kind of to reset right there. Temperatures very, very cold with really the heaviest snow, especially for the Joplin area, coming here in about the next half hour, lasting till about 8 o'clock. And remember, multiple layers, especially if the kiddos got to wait out at the bus stop. All your closings, albeit we only have one delay right now, but you can find those at KOAMNewsNow.com.
That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News. Today marks 1 year since the insurrection on Capitol Hill. Attorney General Merrick Garland vows to bring the perpetrators to justice. Plus, Kim Jong-un has promised increased military might for years now. Has North Korean technology finally delivered on that promise? We'll have the latest. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Topping World Watch, Serbian tennis player Novak Djokovic's visa has been canceled ahead of the Australian Open. Border officials said Djokovic failed to provide appropriate evidence to meet entry requirements to the country. The 20-time Grand Slam champion traveled to the country after receiving a medical exemption, a decision that provoked a backlash among Australians. Djokovic's father says he is currently being housed in a room that no one can enter, with 2 policemen in the front of the room. Officials say non-citizens who do not hold a valid visa on entry or who have had their visa canceled will be detained and removed from the country. It's unclear at this time when Djokovic will be removed from the country. Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison said, quote, "Rules are rules," when it came to canceling Djokovic's visa, saying in a tweet Wednesday that Australia's border policies have been critical to the country having one of the lowest COVID-19 death rates in the world. The Australian Open is scheduled to start January 17th. The Duchess of Sussex's lengthy battle against a British tabloid has come to an end. Meghan Markle is set to receive a confidential sum of money for copyright infringement and £1 for misuse of private information. She had filed 2 separate claims against the Associated Newspapers Group, which publishes the Mail on Sunday and Mail Online, after the newspaper published extracts of a handwritten letter Markle sent to her father. A court had ruled the group infringed her copyright and that she had a reasonable expectation of privacy in the contents of the letter. Markle has said the judgment was a victory for her and anyone who ever felt scared to stand up for what's right. North Korea's weapons and missile tests have become more sophisticated over the years. Paula Hancock looks at some of the country's main weapons and the damage they can do.
North Korea's weapons and missile tests have evolved in recent years from quantity to quality. We're no longer seeing dozens of tests in fairly quick succession, the likes of which we saw in 2017, for example. Each test now appears to be pushing their capabilities forward in a seemingly more measured way. North Korea claims that it has successfully launched a hypersonic missile, accomplishing one of Kim Jong-un's stated priorities. Exact specifications are unknown, but missiles with hypersonic glide vehicles can theoretically fly as fast as 20 times the speed of sound and can be very maneuverable in flight. This would make it almost impossible to shoot down. Some experts say it could change the military equation in the region. North Korea also says it has successfully launched a ballistic missile from a submarine, a way of getting past the missile defense systems of its neighbors or the United States. But other experts do point out that the quality of their submarines is low, so that threat is not imminent. Test firing a ballistic missile from a train, which enables a missile launch from a mountainous area that would be difficult to predict or track. And intercontinental ballistic missiles that North Korea claims could hit mainland United States. The last one was tested in 2017, but in 2020, a newer, larger ICBM was unveiled at a military parade, untested as yet, but experts believe it could potentially carry multiple nuclear warheads or decoys, again to get past missile defense systems. No one knows for sure how many nuclear weapons Pyongyang currently possesses. Arms Control Association estimates that it has potentially produced enough fissile material for 40 to 50 nuclear warheads. Now, North Korea remains one of the poorest nations in the world. It is heavily sanctioned by United Nations Security Council resolutions, and yet it still poses a significant threat to the region and to the world. Kim Jong-un himself has called these weapons precious, saying they're needed for self-defense and also for survival, and he is not willing to give them up. He also continues to blame the US for raising tensions in the region.
And that's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. Let's toss it over to Michael for something to talk about.
A quick little update, Tanya. According to the KOMNewsNow.com closing page, Miller R2 School District in Southwest Missouri. Going to call it a day. Be on the safe side. Remember, all you have to do for those closings, KOMNewsNow.com. Got that closing tab for you right at the very top. Now, on the on the KOM News Now Facebook page this morning, we're discussing tech devices. Every year, the Consumer Electronics Show rolls out. This thing's usually just absolutely huge. But of course, with Omicron, had to back off this year. Our question for you, what is your favorite type of technology? And overwhelmingly, right now, 46% of you say it's got to be my phone. A distant second coming in are video games at 27%. Got about 4 more options that you can choose from as well. Just go to our Facebook page or straight to the poll, KOMNewsNow.com/vote. We'll be back with the news you need to know before you head out the door and get ready for the snow right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Nearly 6 years after a Miami, Oklahoma man stabbed an elderly man and doused him with bleach, he learns his sentence. A judge sentences Brian Waterman to 36 years in prison for attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping. In 2016, Waterman broke into a Baxter Springs, Kansas home, repeatedly stabbed the resident, 78-year-old Bob Hopkins, and then poured bleach on him. Hopkins survived the attack. Jurors convicted Waterman this past November. U.S. Marshals capture a Grove, Oklahoma woman who was considered a most wanted suspect. Authorities yesterday morning arrested Heather Griffith near Grove. Griffith was wanted for violating her probation after pleading guilty to stabbing a woman at a hotel in Grove in November. As temperatures drop, there's concern for the area's homeless population and capacity at local shelters. While there was some concern that local shelters were at capacity, that is not the case. At Souls Harbor, the housing units are full, but the shelter is still able to house people. The executive director at Souls Harbor says they can house up to 35 people on a regular basis. When they reach that limit, they send people to their overflow unit. The Alliance of Southwest Missouri is connecting area nonprofits with the tools and people they need to serve the community. They've created a Facebook page called Community Resources for Nonprofit Professionals. It's a forum for nonprofits to view job listings, classes, funding opportunities, and more. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Those early morning flurries that were in Joplin and just south of I-44 now turning into some legitimate Thursday morning snowfall, actually picking up on the eastern edge of southwest Missouri. If you transition into the central and western portion of the four states, you see a little break, but there's more moving in from central Kansas as well. As far as our current numbers, anything you see there in the lighter blue, that's definitely less than an inch. We do see every now and then an inch and a half, close to 2 inches there on the far northwestern section of southeast Kansas. It's going to last until noon. We're really going to have an uptick here in between about 6 and 8 a.m. And the important thing is not only slowing down on the roads, but also layering up because it is dangerously cold outside. We'll be back right after this.
U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland outlined the latest on the Justice Department's investigation of what happened January 6th. More than 725 people have been arrested, charged, or convicted already, and investigators are still searching for hundreds more. As Ryan Nobles reports, the Attorney General is promising to hold every January 6th rioter accountable, no matter what it takes.
On the eve of the one-year anniversary of the deadly January 6th insurrection, the Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger delivered a stark reality about the threats that still exist for members of Congress.
It's gone up every year. Last year was 8,600. This year was 9,600. So the workload is increasing.
Manger and his force are still addressing problems exposed by the riot, but say they are absolutely better prepared to defend the Capitol. As a chorus of calls to hold those accountable for the insurrection grows louder.
Thank you for your service, for your sacrifice, and for your dedication. I am honored to serve alongside you.
The Department of Justice is prosecuting hundreds of individuals who stormed the Capitol that day, but questions remain about whether those who influenced or encouraged the rioters, like former President Donald Trump, will bear any responsibility. The Attorney General Merrick Garland pledging to hold all perpetrators at any level accountable under the law, but not giving a specific timeline.
We understand that there are questions about how long the investigation will take and about what exactly we are doing. Our answer is, and will continue to be, the same answer we would give with respect to any ongoing investigation. As long as it takes, and whatever it takes for justice to be done consistent with the facts and the law. I understand that this may not be the answer some are looking for.
On Capitol Hill, their investigation continues on a rapid clip. The January 6th Select Committee wants to hear from Fox News host Sean Hannity, who is texting White House officials like former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, begging him to encourage Trump to call off his pressure campaign to prevent the certification of the election results. Texting Meadows, quote, "We can't lose the entire White House counsel's office. I do not see January 6th happening in the way he's being told." Chairman Benny Thompson telling CNN the committee also wants to hear from Vice President Mike Pence and asking him to come in on his own accord.
I would hope that he would do the right thing
and come forward and voluntarily talk to the committee. Everybody there didn't have a security detail. So we'd like to know what his security detail told him was going on and what all went on.
Well, the Justice Department has charged former Trump aide Steve Bannon for his non-cooperation with the House committee investigation. Bannon denies wrongdoing. However, the department has not sought similar charges against former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows for his decision to not cooperate with the investigation. We'll have another look at your forecast after the break.
5:57, roll some weather on the 7s and a snow update. Already getting reports of some slide-offs. We need to leave early. Everybody needs to slow down as we're picking up action, especially south of 44. Throughout southwest Missouri, we got a little break right here in the central, but then we've got more to come out to the west, probably about till a noon hour is when it's going to linger to. Watches and warnings do include a wind chill advisory out to our west. This a winter weather advisory. Just a friendly reminder that this is the first time we've had snow come down like this, especially during a morning commute in some time. 17 degrees in Joplin. We'll be back. Show you where to find all your latest closings right after this.
Coming up, Judgment Day arrives for a Miami, Oklahoma man convicted of attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping.
Through the streetlight in the early morning sky, the snow continues to fall. We'll not only take a look at travel conditions, but also a closing. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, if you're looking for a job, look no further. Freeman Health System hosts a hiring fair, and plenty of positions remain open.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. Let's go straight to Michael Hayslip with a look at that snowy forecast.
Yeah, and Tanya, I'm going to disappear here for a second, but I just want to point out, let's go this way. Miller R2. Now, what is, okay, Miller is a school district in southwest Missouri. It is closed for today. And we're not going to see widespread closures, but this is always a great time to remind everybody that to find everything for current closings, all you have to do is go to KOAMnewsnow.com, and that will give you an idea. And as that list is updated, we'll frequently visit it throughout the course of our show. But like I said, I don't think today is going to be anything with widespread closures by any means. As we transition to 7th and Rangeline, remember that's an elevated shot with a skylight, so it can look a little bit more impressive than what it actually is. But it's coming down at a decent clip. It's become very, very steady, no longer flurries in Joplin. It's legitimate snow, as it's now pressing down south of I-44 and the eastern edge of southwest Missouri, getting a good round as well. Earlier, it's coming close to 2 inches up in the northwest portion of southeast Kansas already, and there's a little bit more to come, but now we're starting to see that 1 inch barrier right here. When you see those color codes right there, kind of skew on the backside of it. So everything in that blue area, that could be anything from trace amounts up to an inch. That darker blue right there could be 1, 2, 3 inches. The majority of this is sticking right now at about inch and a quarter. Still not too impressive, especially since this is the first time that we've had a bout that affects our morning commute. Very, very cold, bringing up winter weather advisories. This down here, you can see where that's flashing right there. That's an extension. They're going to run that thing till about 2, 3 o'clock right along the Missouri-Arkansas border. So that gives you an idea that after it passes through us, it actually kind of re-ramps back up. Not only the snow, but also, too, I want to point out, it's dangerously cold. As we've already hit our highs today. Our temperatures are going to go down. Snow's going to stick around because our overnight low drops down to 14 right there. It get a little bit of a melt, Tanya, but I tell you what, past couple of days have really cooled off the soil and the roads for that matter. So probably really not going to see it all melt until we get to Saturday.
Well, it's going to be cold till we get there. Woo! Well, nearly 6 years after a Miami, Oklahoma man stabbed an elderly man and doused him with bleach, he learns his sentence. A judge sentenced Brian Waterman to 36 years in prison for attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping. In 2016, Waterman broke into a Baxter Springs, Kansas home, repeatedly stabbed the resident, 78-year-old Bob Hopkins, and then poured bleach on him. Hopkins survived the attack. Jurors convicted Waterman this past November. U.S. Marshals capture a Grove, Oklahoma woman who was considered a most wanted suspect. Authorities yesterday morning arrested Heather Griffith near Grove. Griffith was wanted for violating her probation after pleading guilty to stabbing a woman at a hotel in Grove in November. As temperatures drop, there's concern for the area's homeless population and capacity at local shelters. And while there was some concern that local shelters were at capacity, that isn't the case. At Souls Harbor, the housing units are full, but the shelter is still able to house people. The executive director at Souls Harbor says they can house up to 35 people on a regular basis. And when they reach that limit, they send people to their overflow unit.
Overnight shelters are open when the temperatures become extreme. Now, I think Water Gardens is 25 and below, but we do 32 and below over here. So anything 32 degrees or less, then yeah, we certainly want you to come in off the street.
The overnight shelter at Souls Harbor opens at 6 and the cutoff is around 10 p.m., although they say they will still let people in even later. The Alliance of Southwest Missouri is connecting area nonprofits with the tools and people they need to serve the community. They've created a Facebook page called Community Resources for Nonprofit Professionals. It's a forum for nonprofits to view job listings, classes, funding opportunities, and more.
A lot of those times are case managers, social workers, school counselors. So we're thinking, okay, well, this is a very niche group of people that we tend to work with. So, and a lot of that messaging comes through our Facebook, our Instagram, and the rest of our social media accounts. So that's why we thought if we have a Facebook group for it, they can communicate between themselves.
You can find a link to the resource page in this story on our website at koamnewsnow.com. Freeman Health System, like companies across the nation, is looking to fill several positions. The company hosted an open house and hiring fair at Pitt State's Bicknell Family Center for the Arts. Officials say they're looking to fill full and part-time positions, both clinical and non-clinical. However, in the time we were there, very few job candidates showed up to the event. Freeman Health employees we spoke to would not comment on the lack of attendance at the fair, but the hospital system is far from the only company looking for employees right now. Analysts say a nationwide labor shortage is driven in part by early retirement. A record 4.5 million people left their jobs in November. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Employers did ramp up hiring in December at the fastest pace in months. According to payroll processor ADP, private companies added 807,000 positions last month, more than doubling expectations. New jobs were added across the board, but leisure and hospitality positions led the way. The Joplin Area Habitat for Humanity held 2 home dedication ceremonies. These are the organization's 177th and 178th homes completed in the Joplin area. Yesterday's homes went to the Curl family and the Thurman family.
He's really excited and happy. We were actually over here a lot during Christmas break, and we played in the yard a lot, and he didn't ever want to leave. So I would think that he's super happy and really excited.
Habitat for Humanity plans to construct 8 to 10 new homes this year. Walmart is playing a role in feeding hungry folks in the Lamar area who might not have money to hit up their stores. The retail giant donates produce to the Good Samaritan Food Pantry in Lamar, Missouri. The produce is available to all Barton County residents.
This program's open to anybody in Barton County. It's not based on income. If somebody finds themselves in a shortage on food or something, anybody from Barton County is welcome to participate in this.
You can find the Good Samaritan Food Pantry at 1301 Perry in Lamar. 607.
Tanya, there is specifically what Rangeline Road looks like right now. It's just off the intersection of 7th and Rangeline. So here in just the past 45 minutes, we've seen quite a deal of accumulation out there on the roads. Now, let's be thankful that it's more the light and fluffy snow, if you will. But at the same point, we're still getting reports of slick spots. Also, too, in southeast Kansas, portions of Highway 69 and Highway 160 now becoming snow-covered as well. Temperatures going to be cold today, and remember, this snow, it's going to stick around until about the noon hour, so let's all plan appropriately. Remember, it's better to be safe. Your boss going to understand if you're a couple minutes late, because that way boss knows you're going to be at work tomorrow too.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, how churches and other places are stepping in to help parents with childcare in Chicago. Plus, the new CDC guidelines are confusing, but we'll have a breakdown of them to help you understand what they mean. And the EU is passing a law to ban tattoo inks. We'll have how European tattoo artists are reacting. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
How about
In Consumer Watch this morning, it's estimated around a third of Americans have tattoos, and the inks used to make them are mostly unregulated here in the U.S. But in Europe, officials want to blot out what they call dangerous chemicals. CBS's Ian Lee reports.
French tattoo artist Tintin uses a rainbow of colors to make his mark, but a new European Union law aims to cap his creativity by restricting what he can use.
If we don't have any colors or any ink to work with, what are we going to work with?
Starting this week, EU regulators are banning 4,000 chemicals commonly used in colorful tattoo inks and permanent makeup.
The protection of the public health of the European citizens is our primary concern.
Officials say many of the inks can cause health issues ranging from skin irritation to reproductive problems and even cancer, and argue the tattoo industry had time to prepare.
For many of the chemicals which have been banned, there are actually substitutes.
But alternatives for some of the most popular inks are in short supply. Tattoo artists worry this could deal another blow to parlors already struggling from the pandemic.
Our position about this stupid law is like to fight against it.
Tintin believes the tough new rules will force folks to go to the black market to get the colors they want. Ian Lee, CBS News.
The tattoo industry argues there is no hard evidence directly linking tattoos with cancer. Well, stocks nosedived on Wednesday. The Dow dropped 392 points. The Nasdaq skidded 522, and the S&P 500 fell 92. Investors were spooked by the Federal Reserve after it released minutes from its December meeting. It believes inflation may linger longer than previously expected, and the Fed discussed an aggressive strategy to roll back its pandemic-era monetary policy. Well, TikTok is going corporate. The short-form video app struck a deal with Atmosphere TV, a streaming service for businesses. Approved TikTok videos may now end up on TVs in restaurants like Taco Bell and Burger King, and in gyms, bars, medical offices, and elsewhere. Atmosphere removes the audio and adds its own licensed material, so the viral TikTok hits may not have the same effect. One big fish reels in the dough. A bluefin tuna is sold for nearly $150,000 in Japan on Wednesday. Yowzers. It was part of the annual New Year tuna auction in Tokyo's largest fish market. But the 465-pound fish was about $35,000 less than the top-selling tuna from last year's event. Pandemic-related decline in demand is being blamed for the top bid falling in price for a third straight year. Might stick to my canned tuna. That's it for Consumer Watch. We'll be right back.
6:17 on this snowy Thursday morning. We're going to take this time, concentrate specifically on road conditions as we see it begin to pile up somewhat there off of Rangeline. Just saw a city truck, a plow, making its way down 7th Street. Let's start with the Skywatch storm tracker and our radar as we have a new storm report coming out of Crawford County in the Pittsburg area. These will pile up, of course, as the morning goes on. This is rather preliminary right now, but smack dab in the middle of your screen. That's ½ an inch recorded in Pittsburg with the snow still falling from a co-op observer station. So if that's coming in right now, we know we're going to easily probably get an inch here by the time it's said and done. Now let's talk about travel conditions, because we're beginning to see the color-coded highways and roads pop up. We'll start down here in the Joplin area, Newton, Jasper County, where you see that light blue. That's going to indicate mostly clear. So that's a good sign. But then as we progress up to the north, through portions of Barton and Vernon County, we see it goes from partly covered all the way to covered up on I-49 near Nevada. Transition over to Springfield, they're much worse off than what we are right now. As far as what we're looking at in Kansas, you see the number 2 right there? Well, we've got a couple of events, but luckily those events are not involving accidents. Those are snow-covered roads on Highway 69 and also Highway 160. Now, as far as what we're getting out of Oklahoma Department of Transportation saying everything right now is smooth sailing. Just let's all take extra time today and be extra safe and extra slow. The Chicago Teachers Union voted earlier this week to teach virtually rather than in the classroom. That triggered Chicago Public Schools. Now remember, public school system wants in-person classes. Well, they canceled all classes yesterday. In response to that, churches, community centers, and YMCAs stepped up to help parents in need to look after their children. Evelyn Holmes with the story.
Reverend Ira Ackrey is turning his Greater St. John Bible Church into a sanctuary of a different sort. The West Side House of Worship is one of roughly 25 locations slated as a safe haven site for Chicago Public School students.
It's an old African proverb. It says when two elephants fight, it's the ground that suffers.
The pastor says the church is expanding its after-school program to accommodate parents looking for safe childcare during the day. The normal 3-hour Monday through Friday program will now run from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and will include breakfast, lunch, and a snack. In the city's West Roseland neighborhood, another safe haven site, Mom's Enrichment Center After School welcomed CPS students today, only hours after it was announced there would be no school. It was all a part of a scramble for childcare. Fortunately for this mom, the Southside YMCA had room for her 3-year-old son.
This is stressful, and it's hard for single mothers and single parents and single fathers. That's a 9-to-5 job.
There's still plenty of parents stuck in the middle of the ongoing clash between school officials and the Chicago Teachers Union over safety and health protocols.
I'm frustrated about it.
Marie Dumas only learned this morning there would be no school today for her grandson, a second grader at South Loop Elementary School.
I'm feeling sad because I can't go to school today.
Meanwhile, a collection of Southwest Side parents and students are calling for CPS to pivot back to remote learning.
Listen to the teachers, listen to us parents.
Schools are not being properly disinfected. Many teachers and students right now are putting themselves on the line.
It's unclear exactly when classes will resume, either in person or remotely.
School district CEO said because there's still no agreement between administrators and teachers, there will be no classes again this morning. We'll be back with Health Watch right after this.
Topping Health Watch this morning, there's new guidance from the CDC on COVID-19 and isolation. But as Americans face unprecedented numbers of COVID cases, the guidelines are causing some confusion. Mandy Gaither breaks down the new advice in today's Health Minute.
As new COVID-19 cases reach a record high, Omicron is fueling the fire. The CDC says the variant accounts for 95% of U.S. infections.
The coming weeks are going to be challenging.
The CDC says most of the virus spread happens early, typically 1 to 2 days before symptoms start and 2 to 3 days after. If you test positive for COVID-19, the CDC recommends you isolate for 5 days. If asymptomatic or are feeling better without a fever for at least 24 hours, that should be followed by 5 days of wearing a well-fitting mask around others. If you're exposed to COVID-19 and unvaccinated or not boosted, quarantine for 5 days, then mask for an additional 5 days. If you can't isolate yourself in those initial 5 days, any exposed person should wear a well-fitting mask when around others for 10 days after exposure. If they have access to a rapid test, the CDC says take it at or close to day 5 after exposure. If the test is positive, you're advised to remain isolated until 10 days after symptoms started. If you're vaccinated and boosted, you don't need to isolate after an exposure, but should wear a mask around others for 10 days afterwards.
Get vaccinated and get boosted if you are eligible. Wear a mask. Stay home when you're sick and take a test if you have symptoms.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The CDC also says anyone isolating should avoid places they cannot wear masks, like restaurants and gyms, and avoid eating around others until day 10. They should also wait to travel until at least 10 days after the start of symptoms. For those who must travel after the 5-day isolation period, they should wear a mask the entire trip. Pollution from traffic is causing nearly 2 million children a year to develop asthma. A study published by George Washington University found that nitrogen dioxide, a chemical found in tailpipe emissions, is a major factor in causing asthma. Nearly 2/3 of the child asthma cases happened in urban areas. Researchers say tougher clean air regulations in the U.S. and Europe are helping reduce those emissions. N95 respirators can be reused over and over again if they're properly decontaminated. A study published in the American Journal of Infection Control tested the respirators by using vaporized hydrogen peroxide to decontaminate them. The N95s were still effective even after being used and decontaminated 25 times. Researchers say this can help maintain the supply of respirators for future epidemics. The COVID pandemic is negatively impacting the mental health of young cancer patients. A study published in the Psycho-Oncology found cancer patients between the ages of 15 and 39 were 85% more likely to experience high psychological distress than before the pandemic. Doctors say social isolation and impaired cancer care due to the pandemic are likely to blame. And that's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
Getting a little break in the snow every now and then for the central and the west, but still coming down pretty good clip out there. On the eastern edge of southwest Missouri, stretching down south of I-44 as well. We've gotten an additional closing on the board. Not only Miller R2 School District in southwest Missouri, but now Trinity Lutheran School in Freistadt as well. We'll tell you how to find the latest closings, cancellations, and delays when we return right after this.
Coming up, Judgment Day arrives for a Miami, Oklahoma man convicted of attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping.
Thursday morning snow causing not only some school cancellations, but also updated driving conditions. The latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, if you're looking for a job, look no further. Freeman Health System hosts a hiring fair and plenty of positions remain open.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6:30. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first let's go to Michael Hayslip with the latest on this snowy forecast.
That opening shot there before we went to you kind of made me chuckle because it's a gorgeous overhead view of the Praying Hands in Webb City with all the green grass and how lush it is. And I'm thinking, I'm about to welcome everybody to Thursday morning with a snow-covered 7th and Range line. Need everybody to slow down. This thing is piled up pretty fast here in Joplin. Started as flurries when we began the show, but oh my, how things change as we're now seeing legitimate snowfall south of I-44 through the eastern portion of southwest Missouri. We see little breaks every now and then, but let's pay attention to what's out to the west because we've still got several hours before this is all said and done. Now, with that being said, time to break down our updated traffic look. This is from the state of Missouri. And the biggest change that we're seeing, 44 coming right through here in Joplin, up there, and then headed out towards Springfield. That is now qualified as partially covered. Partially covered. Then, as we transition up to Highway 54 up there, and not only 54, I want to point this out too. That's a new update right there on 49 as you work your way into Nevada. You see that purple color? That indicates that the interstate and the highway is covered. It is indeed covered. So once again, we're starting to see the snow pile up on 44, 49, and 54. And of course, your county roads anticipate that they're already covered. As far as what we're seeing in Kansas, 2 things to talk about. And when I say that, I mean that literally, 2 right there. One of those is snow-covered Highway 69 and a snow-covered Highway 160 as well. While we're at it, it's that time of year. While these are not going to be widespread today, remember you can always go to KOAMnewsnow.com for your latest closing. We've got 2 on the board as we speak. The Miller R2 School District in southwest Missouri and also in southwest Mo, Trinity Lutheran School in Freistadt. Those both closed for today because of the snowfall. For those of you that are headed out, layer up. It is dangerously cold. We've kind of topped out temperature-wise, Tanya. We're going to sink back down into the teens for most of the morning and afternoon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Michael. Well, nearly 6 years after a Miami, Oklahoma man was stabbed an elderly man and doused him with bleach, he learns his sentence. A judge sentences Brian Waterman to 36 years in prison for attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping. In 2016, Waterman broke into a Baxter Springs, Kansas home, repeatedly stabbed the resident, 78-year-old Bob Hopkins, and then poured bleach on him. Hopkins survived the attack. Jurors convicted Waterman this past November. U.S. Marshals capture a Grove, Oklahoma woman who was considered a most wanted suspect. Authorities yesterday morning arrested Heather Griffith near Grove. Griffith was wanted for violating her probation after pleading guilty to stabbing a woman at a hotel in Grove in November. The Alliance of Southwest Missouri is connecting area nonprofits with the tools and people they need to serve the community. They created a Facebook page called Community Resources for Nonprofit Professionals. It's a forum for nonprofits to view job listings, classes, funding opportunities, and more.
Our case managers, social workers, school counselors. So we're thinking, okay, well, this is a very niche group of people that we tend to work with. So, and a lot of that messaging comes through our Facebook, our Instagram, and the rest of our social media accounts. So that's why we thought if we have a Facebook group for it, they can communicate between themselves.
You can find a link to the resource page in the story on our website at koamnewsnow.com. Freeman Health System, like companies across the nation, is looking to fill several positions. The company hosted an open house and hiring fair at Pitt State's Bicknell Family Center for the Arts. Officials say they're looking to fill full and part-time positions, both clinical and non-clinical. However, in the time we were there, very few job candidates showed up to the event. Freeman Health employees we spoke to would not comment on the lack of attendance at the fair, but the hospital system is far from the only company looking for employees right now. Analysts say a nationwide labor shortage is driven in part by early retirement. A record 4.5 million people left their jobs in November. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. At 7 years old, Ava Silva from Chickasaw, Oklahoma, is being called a hero for her quick thinking that might have saved her family from a fire. Ashlyn Brothers has her story.
The Silvas say that the fire started inside the garage. Ava was here in the living room when she heard a noise. She ran out the front door and onto the porch. That's when she saw the flames and ran back inside to wake up her parents.
I really miss our house.
Ava is 7. She just wants her stuff back.
My Alexa, my phone, and my trampoline, my dogs, all of my stuff.
Ava says it keeps coming back to her.
I started hearing crackling.
She was asleep early Sunday morning.
I woke up and I saw the fire through the kitchen. It was reddish, orangish.
Ava ran outside to see what was happening.
I already know what to do because I'm really smart.
She just started screaming, "Mom, there's a fire. I don't know what's going on. There's a fire. Run."
Ava's mom, Joella, says her husband rushed to grab their 5-month-old son, and they all ran across the street as their house burned to the ground.
My husband and I just got married last year, and we were still building everything up.
Joella says the smoke detectors never went off. She believes her daughter is a hero. In fact, Ava was supposed to be staying at a friend's house Saturday night, but felt the urge to come home.
Something just kept telling her I think something was going to be wrong that night, and I think it was probably God.
The Silvas were able to save an outdoor S that hung outside.
I think this is a symbol that all that we have right now is family.
Now Ava says she doesn't know how to feel.
Sad and angry.
Joella is thankful.
Without everybody helping us, we would be homeless.
Again, that was Ashlyn Brothers reporting. Let's go over to Michael with the latest look at your forecast.
Hi, Tanya, from 7th and Rangeline as the snow begins to pile up there at the intersection. Bitterly cold as well. Temperatures right now only 17 degrees. Feels like 4. So not only were we fighting the snow for the morning commute, but also dangerous cold temperatures. Majority of the snow beginning to pile up there throughout southwest Missouri. But hey, southeast Kansas and northeast Oklahoma, you're not quite done, because we've got more rolling in. Here's a look at our temperatures. We've kind of topped out for the day. We'll just kind of hang here, and that's why I need to be very, very careful. Layer up. Remember, temperatures that low can pose a danger to exposed skin.
That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News. A tragic fire in Philadelphia causes the loss of 12 lives. We'll have more details on the fire. Plus, technology has rapidly advanced. Some remember when there was none. Some remember when there wasn't as much as we have now, and more. We want to know, what's your favorite form of technology? We let you weigh in. We'll be right back. Topping Nation Watch this morning, tragedy in Philadelphia after an apartment blaze killed at least 12 people yesterday morning. 8 of the victims were children, with the youngest just 2 years old. Fire officials say 8 people escaped and 2 more were taken to the hospital. Michael George has more.
This is the scene after a horrific fire broke out Wednesday morning in a Philadelphia apartment building. Fire officials say they don't yet know what caused the blaze that killed at least a dozen people, most of them children.
I've been around for 35 years now, and this is probably one of the worst fires I've ever been to.
Friends of those who lived there rushed to the scene.
The new year just came in, so we just all got rampant with this all at one time, so just hurt, just trying to just grieve, that's all.
The city's mayor, Jim Kenney, appeared distraught while surveying the damage. He called it devastating.
This is, without a doubt, one of the most tragic days in our city's history.
The Philadelphia Housing Authority-owned building is converted into 2 units. According to its records, the building's smoke detectors were working during a May inspection, but fire officials say none of them were operating at the time of the fire.
I don't know if they were replaced or tampered with. We have no idea.
The Housing Authority says it is cooperating with the fire department in its investigation. Michael George, CBS News.
First Lady Jill Biden tweeted, "My heart is with the families and loved ones of the victims of the tragic fire in Philadelphia." It's been 1 year since the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol, and today President Biden is expected to place blame on former President Trump for misleading his supporters about the election. CBS's Laura Podesta is on Capitol Hill with a reminder about what happened and where we are today.
January 6th, 2021 started with Congress working to confirm Joe Biden's Electoral College victory.
To object to the counting of the electoral ballots from Arizona.
Not far from the Capitol, then President Trump was holding a rally as he and his supporters continued to question the results of the election.
And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Shortly after, some of his supporters stormed the building, making it all the way to the Senate floor, delaying the election certification until early the next morning. Then President-elect Biden called it an attack on democracy.
This is not dissent. It's disorder. It's chaos. It borders on sedition.
More than 700 people have been arrested in connection to the attack, but the FBI is still looking for 350 more believed to have committed acts of violence that day.
Those who assaulted officers or damaged the Capitol face greater charges. Those who conspired with others to obstruct the vote count also face greater charges.
At the Capitol today, there will be vigils and moments of reflection. In an address to the nation, President Biden is expected to speak to the importance of a peaceful transfer of power.
He sees January 6th as a tragic culmination of what those 4 years under President Trump did to our country.
A law enforcement bulletin said this week that there are no specific nor credible threats to the Capitol. Laura Podesta, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
CBS News poll shows 66% of Republicans believe there was widespread fraud in the 2020 election. That's a look at today's top national stories. Let's check back in with Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Thank you, Tanya. This morning on the KOAM News Now Facebook page in our morning Insta poll, discussing tech devices. Every year, the Consumer Electronics Show, just most people call it CES, rolls out. It's in Vegas, and this thing is absolutely huge. You got Amazon, Meta, Google, GM, and this is a who's who that happens every year. But of course, Omicron will scale it down this year, going virtual. Now, for the companies that did show up, masks and vaccinations required. Samsung showing off a more affordable version of its Galaxy S21, and there was the Freestyle. It's a tiny home projector for movies and TVs. Show's going to wrap up tomorrow. Our question to you, your favorite type of tech. And right now, 60% of you say, yeah, gotta have that phone with me. And now we've actually seen smart TV come up and tie, albeit a distant second, but tie video games. Appreciate everybody taking part. Remember, connect to us via our Facebook page. Go straight to the poll, koamnewsnow.com/vote, or we have our QR code if you've got your phone handy, and we pop this up every now and then during the course of the show each morning. You can just snap a picture of it with your phone camera, and it will deliver you straight to the poll each and every morning. We're going to come back and celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, but first, let's run out to New York City. I want to know what's going on CBS This Mornings with Nate.
I'm Nate Burleson. Coming up on CBS Mornings, 1 year after the attack on the U.S. Capitol, we'll take an in-depth look at what happened that day in the investigation which followed. Also, we'll hear from Americans whose faith in our democratic institutions has been shattered and what it could mean for the future of our democracy. That's coming up on CBS Mornings.
We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Smith from Pittsburg, Kansas. Smith served in the Air Force from 1942 to 1964. Lieutenant Colonel Smith was shot down twice and survived. He also manned the first B-52 bomber delivered to the U.S. Army. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Smith, we thank you, today's four-state hero.
Hero stories are amazing. That one maybe particularly so. That is truly great. Our birthday list begins with Kenzie Keeling, who is celebrating her 12th birthday. Kenzie, I want you to have a marvelous, snowy birthday. She is in Parsons.
All right, Trey Smith, turning 18 years old this year. Trey is in Girard.
Throw up the double T's. We got a pair of them right now. We're going to start with Trenton Kidwell. He is turning 18, and he's got to share that birthday with twin brother Trevor. That's why we call it the double T's right there. Happy birthday to Trenton and Trevor in Chanute.
All right, and we got Josh Thompson turning 21 years old this year. Happy birthday to Josh.
Whoa! That's called a feast right there. Not bad. Our good friend Isaac Leverins, he is celebrating his 22nd birthday. Isaac, that's a sharp-looking suit, my man. Happy birthday in Pittsburgh.
All right, Melinda Buchanan celebrating birthday number 39 this year. That's a great family picture there for Melinda in Jasper.
Every now and then, if we consider you part of the extended family, you get a who dat is. What up, Robin? Happy birthday to our good friend, Miss Robin Harrell, as she celebrates her 42nd birthday. Robin, running that Harrell family in Pittsburgh.
All right, beautiful.
No offense,
family
Tyler.
there. Happy birthday, Robin. This is your day. And we've got Joe Cleeson celebrating birthday number 71 this year. Joe is in Erie, Kansas.
Now, her birthday was yesterday, but we'd be remiss if we did not pass it on and make sure we gave happy birthday wishes to Scarlett Bowles. What a beautiful picture. Miss Scarlett, happy birthday in Columbus.
Also in Columbus, that's where the party's at today, the Freemans are celebrating their 27th anniversary. Congrats going out to Steve and Lori Freeman.
Hey, happy birthday and happy anniversary to all on this January the 6th. Maybe we played a day of catch-up, and maybe it was January 5th. That's where you can send them into birthdays at KOAMTV.com. You can also go to our website, KOAMNewsNow.com. Now, here's Tanya Bach with a very important birthday announcement.
That's right, you can be a part of the KOAM Birthday Club by going to our website and signing up. And once you do, you'll get special deals from local businesses. Go to KOAMNewsNow.com and sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today.
Have you had all your Christmas packages delivered that you were anticipating?
No, I'm still waiting on one.
Well, that's curious because I'm waiting on two. And so for those of you out there that perhaps are awaiting some packages, you got to stick with us on KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Because they may be in Oklahoma. They may not be intact in Oklahoma because a group of Grinch bandits decided to pull a mail heist. We're going to find out exactly what they had in store and maybe give you an idea if your packages is in one of those bags that police were able to recover. All that and more when we flip on over to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Now let's flip on over to 7th and Rangeline, where we're seeing the snow begin to pile up there at the intersection. As far as our current conditions, only 17 degrees with that wind chill. Oh, a bitter 4. Let's talk a little bit about the snow that we've had and the snow that's still to come as we see it begin to pile up on the eastern edge of southwest Missouri and then once again beginning to dominate the central portion through Crawford, Cherokee, Jasper, and Barton counties in between Pittsburg and Joplin. We now see it re-emerging out to the west of southeast Kansas and making its way, getting ready to drop more snow on Chanute. We've got some new storm reports coming out. When I say storm reports, that's just the generic name we give for those icons right there. The one you see over Pittsburg, that's an earlier report of ½ an inch. These new ones that we get out of Barton County and Vernon County right over Nevada, 1 inch of snow, and you'll notice the description, still snowing. So let's talk about that Vernon County report right there, because if we go up here on I-49, you'll notice that is in the purple along with Highway 54. That indicates that portion of 49 and 54 is covered. Let's drop down here to 44 in Joplin, and you'll notice it's in that darker blue. That indicates partly covered. So this is why we not only have the slick spots, but also, too, I know our road crews are out and they're working hard, but know that you're going to run into partially covered or maybe even fully covered roads and interstates. Winter weather advisory lasting until noon on the eastern edge of southwest Missouri. Our temperatures, you need multiple layers. Exposed skin, it can actually go through frostbite and hypothermia when we drop down this low, and we're pretty much going to hang here all day long. This high that you'll see for our Monday panel, that's kind of where we were earlier. We're not going to have much of a bump up. Snow should be done by the lunch hour, so about noon we're beginning to calm down. But remember, it's going to remain on the roads, that's for sure, because we don't get above freezing until tomorrow afternoon. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Nearly 6 years after a Miami, Oklahoma man stabbed an elderly man and doused him with bleach, he learns his sentence. A judge sentenced Brian Waterman to 36 years in prison for attempted murder and aggravated kidnapping. In 2016, Waterman broke into a Baxter Springs, Kansas home, repeatedly stabbed the resident, 78-year-old Bob Hopkins, and then poured bleach on him. Hopkins survived the attack. Jurors convicted Waterman this past November. U.S. Marshals capture a Grove, Oklahoma woman who was considered a most wanted suspect. Authorities yesterday morning arrested Heather Griffith near Grove. Griffith was wanted for violating her probation after pleading guilty to stabbing a woman at a hotel in Grove in November. As temperatures drop, there's concern for the area's homeless population and capacity at local shelters. While there was some concern that local shelters were at capacity, that isn't the case. At Souls Harbor, the housing units are full, but the shelter is still able to house people. The executive director at Souls Harbor says they can house up to 35 people on a regular basis, and when they reach that limit, they send people to their overflow unit. The Alliance of Southwest Missouri is connecting area nonprofits with the tools and people they need to serve the community. They've created a Facebook page called Community Resources for Nonprofit Professionals. It's a forum for nonprofits to view job listings, classes, funding opportunities, and more. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
There's the snow that will persist until around the noon hour, so please know that we're already getting reports of slick spots out on the road, several slide-offs, as well as 2 school cancellations, Miller R2 School District in southwest Missouri, and then we also have Trinity Lutheran School in Freistadt. You can find a complete list of closings when we have inclement weather at KOAMnewsnow.com. It is bitterly cold outside and temperatures really not going anywhere. We're going to hover in the low 20s and the teens overnight, dropping back down with wind chills that, Tanya, I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to see negative numbers on our wind chills for tonight into tomorrow morning.
Coming up today at noon, we're making Mama Mia's tortellini soup in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Next on CBS Mornings, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer discusses his memories of the January 6th attack on the Capitol and the ongoing investigation into what happened 1 year ago today.
Or you can switch on over with us on Fox 14, where your only local morning news continues. And this morning, one of the Mayfield, Kentucky tornado survivors is released from the hospital.
Plus, if you want to know what's coming out in theaters and also coming to streaming sites at your home, we've got your latest releases. So flip on over with us, as well as those Grinches who stole those packages. See if they've got yours. Do me a favor. Be safe. We'll do this all again tomorrow morning.
And we'll do it again today at noon.
At Hardee's,